And welcome again. I see a lot of new names and faces, so welcome if this is your first time joining us. This meeting will be recorded, so you can go back and look at it again later if you wish to, or you can invite your friends to come and view. I'm going to put the note taker link in one more time. If you'll please sign in to show that you are here for our records, and it has a list of all of the links and things that I'm sharing with you today. So today we are going to talk about ELs and CTE. So everyone does see my screen, I hope, with the presentation. Good, thank you. I appreciate the thumbs up. All right. So as always, our community agreements are the same, and I have a quote for today from Herbert Spencer. Says, "The great aim of education is not knowledge, but action." And today, kind of what we're going to be talking about is maybe spurring a little action on our part. So, moving forward. Again, I put the note takers link in the chat. If you'll please sign in so we have record of your attendance. I am Cami Goucher, English Language Development Director at DESE. Today, I'm going to share with you first a few updates from the field, from WIDA and from the Department of Education. And then we're going to talk specifically about English learners and CTE. And we're going to touch pretty much on all of our links to our blueprint today. And you can find that at the link that's at the bottom of the screen if you want to go back and read more about that. And I mentioned this last time, but I want to share it again. If you have questions about MAP and EOC, I've provided you with a link to the accommodations for both of those here on the screen. And if you have specific questions, you can direct those to Sean Bates, who is our coordinator of assessment. All right. From WIDA, there are a couple of webinars coming up that I wanted to make you aware of. The first one is WIDA and DRC, and they're going to talk a little bit about the new reporting services and the operational dashboard that has been pushed out this year. And then there is another webinar coming up soon about using your data and the research to inform practical issues for proficiency and growth of our English learners. So both of those can be found on the WIDA webinars page. And I've provided the link to that. You'll access that through the secure portal. So also from WIDA, we have a document that explains access for ELs to parents and how you can share with them how to understand the child's scores that they receive. So when we get those back, that's a good document to share out with our parents along with that score report. And there's also an access for communicating with your colleagues that you can share out with score reports within your school. And then you can find out more about access, scores, and reports. They have some new documents on their website, Access for ELs Online, how the speaking test is scored, if you ever wondered about that. So there's a link to that. And then there's a document called Everything You've Ever Wanted to Know, Scoring Access for ELs. So those are some new documents or maybe some reviewed documents that you might want to look at again at this time of year. And then the alternate access is now up and running. So there is also a guide to looking at the score reports and scores on the new access, alternate access. And then there is a newly released glossary from Advancing Altella that is on their webpage as well. Then we have a new family engagement page and information on the redesigned kindergarten access that's coming out in 25-26. So they just released that update recently. And then I wanted to direct your attention to some new key language use posters that just became available for purchase. They're very nice. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to see them, but they are directly from our new WIDA Standards Handbook. So they've just kind of taken that information and condensed it into one poster. And they're for the grade levels and across the different domains. All right. Put the note taker link in there again for those of you who just joined us. All right. Also, please don't forget about the self-paced WIDA e-learning modules. Those are available until September. So you can keep watching those until the 1st of September. So you have all summer if you want to go through and look at those. And we will be renewing those for next year, and that will start in August. They have informed us that there are a few new additions to that as well. I lost my cursor. There we go. All right, then from the U.S. Department of Education, we have a report on smoothing the path for immigrants to finish their college degrees. So it was a very good article that might give you some ideas for working with graduating English learners. And then there is a podcast I wanted to make you aware of from Assets, which is through the Department of Education. The last one that they just put out was from Office of Civil Rights. So it was a very informative session that talked about the civil rights of English learners. And then they've also put out a quick guide for teachers on selecting and using culturally appropriate children's books in languages other than English that I found very interesting. I thought I would share that with you as well. And then ensuring equitable access to dual language immersion programs is the focus of many of the conversations that go along with this raising the bar. So I wanted to make sure you saw that as well. There will be a webinar on May 30th that will kind of delve into this a little bit deeper and talk about the importance of heritage language education. So I've provided you with a registration link for that as well. I can monitor my chat as well. And then from Region 15 Comprehensive Center, along with OELA, they're inviting you to a series of webinars, trainings on formative assessment, and they are free. They're geared towards K-12, and you can register through the link on the screen there. They've also developed an outreach packet for the new Learner Family Toolkit, English Learner Family Toolkit that came out this past year. So you can find that through this link. And through the Migration Policy Organization, there is a new research article on mental health and supporting immigrant families and refugees. So I've shared that with that bottom link there. As far as upcoming PD, on May 27th, we're going to talk about program evaluation for your EL program and the 3-year cycle. I have not heard any updates yet, but hopefully I have something before May 27th that I will be able to share with you as far as an update. If I don't, we'll just talk about how we use our data to inform our program evaluation for the next year. And then we'll have, again, our ELD Summer Academy. This year will be on June 24th. You can find both of those things on our curriculum calendar with that link that's there on the screen. And it's also available on the ELD webpage under Professional Development with the bottom link there. Right. Then some events that are coming up soon. We have Elevate. Our Elevate conference will be June 5th through 6th, and it's in St. Louis at, I believe it was St. Charles this year. Cambio de Colores is in Kansas City on June 5th through 7th. And then Interface this year will also have some ELD sessions. And so we invite you to attend that if you're able. It's September 27th through October 1st. And then this summer, we will have a literacy summit, which will also have ELD sessions for ELD teachers and classroom teachers as well. And I don't see the date on here. It will also be on our curriculum calendar so that you can sign up through there as well. All right. Then I wanted to share a few resources. I've shared this first one before, Satchel Commons. It gives you kind of a digital explorer for the WIDA standards, puts it all in one space that you can quickly search for a certain standard. And it's laid out a lot like those posters I was just talking about. So you can go and search for certain ideas and tools that you can use along with our WIDA standards. And then this is a new site that I found. I don't know if you're aware of. The English Learner Success Forum has lots of great ideas for working with ELA and math for English learners. And they recently put out a resource called Do Leveled Readers Hurt or Help My ELs, which I thought was very interesting. So I'll put a link to that as well. The next link I have here is the Bloom Library, which is another thing that I recently found. And it provides free books to read in several different languages on various topics, and some are even audiobooks that you can listen to. There's also a section that provides opportunities to add or create your own books. And the reason that I found this is I attended a webinar with the Department of Education, and they shared that it was mostly working with Native Americans and some of the languages that are in danger of being lost. And so they've worked with many families and taken some of those languages and put them into books and illustrated them and published them to this library. So I thought that was a wonderful idea that even we might be able to do with some of our parents, is take some of their stories and put them into books and publish them there. So it's a pretty good website. I will let you know there are some religious books on there as well, but it's pick and choose what you'd like to read and share with your students. And then I took someone else's idea and a tool that is available through Google and created an EL proficiency levels flipbook for teachers that you can share with classroom teachers. It looks at what you can expect a student to do at the different proficiency levels and some of the things from our expectation guide at each level. And then you can, on the next page, you can list students who are at that level. So something for you to check out. And this last thing was provided also in a webinar that I attended with Support Ed. And it is a job interview checklist for your EL students that might be needing to prepare for a summer job. So just something fun to share there that might be helpful to your students. All right, so now we're going to get on to English learners or multilingual learners and CTE. So one thing when we're talking about preparing for English learners for the next year is what courses we're placing them in. And part of that's kind of, as I talked about earlier, our end of year program review. And I liked this that I found on another webinar that I attended. They said, we need to be warned. If we have students who are failing courses or having to repeat courses very often, the same course over and over again is having more and more English learners that have to repeat the course. Or if there is missing core content areas in the schedule for our English learners, or if their schedules are incomplete, or they're in too many remedial or non-credit bearing classes, or their progress towards earning the credits they need for graduation is very slow. Or if your students are absent or disengaged a lot, those might be warning signs that offer a deeper look into, is your program effective? Are there other things you need to be looking at? So when we get ready to talk about scheduling for next year and getting our students ready for classes, those are some things you have to think about. Are these things happening in my school? And then we aren't supposed to track students, but unfortunately our ELs kind of get into a track sometimes. Sometimes they're on a leveled steps track where they're either maybe going toward honors program or on the other end, remedial programs. Or they're exclusionary, where we don't let them enter a class because we don't feel like they're ready for them yet. And that could be ELA classes, math classes, or some of the electives. Or we could have them on that parallel track where we offer those sheltered bilingual and co-teaching classes. But sometimes we keep them in that track too long when they're ready to step out. So those are all things to think about when we're looking at our course schedules for next year as well. Something else we need to take into consideration is that how well are we challenging our students? Are we high challenge or low challenge? And with each challenge, what kind of support are we offering? Are we keeping our students in the frustration zone by challenging them too much and not offering enough support? Are we not challenging them enough and not offering very much support, where they're just kind of in a twilight zone and not knowing what they should be doing and not really going anywhere? Or are we in a low challenge, high support level where they're having an easy ride and we're not really challenging them enough? Or are we in that apprenticeship zone where we're right on target and we're getting students where they need to be? So this is the zone we're striving for, that high challenge, high support level. All right. So back in 2018, we had this movement called Rethink School. And what the movement said was that we need to question everything with why. Why aren't we looking at work-based learning, the Earn to Learn programs? Why can't employers play a large role in preparing students for the futures? And why is CTE for some, but not for all students? Most students why do we have to wait until the students are in middle school or high school to start talking about careers? Why haven't we developed teacher pipelines to meet the needs of existing and emerging career paths in every community? Why isn't every community empowered to create high quality CTE approaches to meet the local needs? And why do barriers exist between the levels and types of education? Why is access to high quality CTE limited by zip codes? And why is credentialing considered the end of the line for learning? Why don't we go farther and beyond that? So those are some questions they asked starting back in 2018. And then some reasons why they said, why do we need to rethink CTE, was we need to have pathways to better prepare our students for what comes next. We have over 7 million unfilled jobs in the United States. And they said by 2020, 2/3 of the jobs are going to require post-secondary education. 85% of the jobs today's learners will do in 2030 haven't yet been invented. And 1/4 of our high schools don't offer CTE courses. And then, of course, our large college debt that we're working on right now. And their premise was that students deserve better, employers must demand better, and America must do better. And from that came the new Perkins 5. And so you can find a link to that there as well. You can find a link to the Rethink CTE from the link listed there as well. So a little background on CTE. Between 2019 and 2020, less than 7% of our high school students were English learners. And those learners were in the lowest four-year graduation rates, with only 71% graduating of any student group. So because of that, they put their heads together and they developed this 2018 Strengthening Career and Technical Education for the 21st Century Act. And what it does is it looks at some traditionally marginalized groups like our English learners, and the legislation states that they have to have two key actions. They have to disaggregate data to show participation and achievement for each of the subgroups and use that data to identify and close some of the opportunity gaps. And then they also should need to consult with community representatives to find out what's needed in their communities and what skills are in demand for some of the occupations. All right. And we all know this, but under federal civil rights statutes, students can't be denied access to any educational program that's offered to all students just because of their EL status or their level of English proficiency. And even though we've had that law for decades now, there are still schools who do not enroll our students into some of these programs and follow this rule. And the reason is that we have local control. Our schools get to put students in classes or specialized programs with their own criteria. And counselors are the ones that are usually doing this. And unfortunately, they steer our students away from certain pathways. And so our ELs especially don't get to enroll in some of these programs because of ideals and what they feel a student is and isn't able to do. Now, there's a movement in Denver that I found to be very innovative. They call their program SERVE, and it is an acronym. S stands for Student Talk. That's frequent, accountable, and structured. The E is explicit instruction in the academic language that they need. R is for rigorous grade level content. The V is visual resources that are used extensively and interactively. And the E is for equitable and encouraging and respectful learning environments. And then the next screen, I want to share a short video from Denver. It is in Spanish, but it has subtitles. So let's see if I can get it to work here. There we go. So again, it kind of brought to the front that being bilingual is a superpower, as our Secretary of Education has said in the Raising the Bar campaign. And I really like how they brought in community members and parents and employers and talked about the importance of being bilingual and having a bilingual representation in our workforce. So I thought that was a very well-made video that we could share with others. Another report that I came across was this one from the National Research and Development Center to Improve Education for Secondary English Learners through WestEd. And it talks about some levers that we can use to support course access for our English learners. And one of the things that it pointed out within this article report is that we both sometimes have negative and positive impact in the way that we put students into coursework. And it delves into some of the ways we can overcome that and put students on the right track. And so they have these 3 levers, and then they've broken them down. The first one is state and district policies, and then school and program decisions, and then of course always school staffing. And so it breaks it down into several categories and things that you can do to assist in program planning within those areas. Career and technical education programs, they said, can help young adults who are learning English to stay engaged in school and graduate and then ultimately find employment. And this other document, Unlocking Opportunities, from the Migration Policy Institute, goes a little bit deeper and talks about how high school degree or the equivalent is the essential stepping stone for pursuing education and employment. And CTE gives them opportunities like internships and apprenticeships that connect them to college credits and industry credentials and certifications and licenses. It talks exclusively about English learners and how they can get involved in the CTE programs and how you can strengthen your policies and practices for those students. And one of the things it pointed out was this map that shows how ELs are either over or underrepresented in CTE programs across our nation. And with Missouri, it has 0%, which means we are neither over nor underrepresented. So one of the things they pointed out in the study was there really isn't enough data, and the reporting system for this area is not very well developed because they don't have to report on some of the information, but some of that's going to be changing. And that's what this page says. It says in most states, they were generally included in CTE programs at about the same rate as other high school students. There are some states where they were underrepresented, and some states like California and Idaho and Virginia where they were overrepresented in some areas, but information again is lacking. And so we need to develop that further. They also told about some obstacles that prevent English learners from benefiting from CTE programs. One was that they're still somewhat discriminated against in our schools, and so they don't get the access and opportunities that some may. English learners have those additional English language development classes that they need, so sometimes that puts them on a slow track and they can't get into a CTE program that takes maybe 3 years of studies to complete. And then there are communication barriers between their families and the educational guidance needed to get into the programs. And then we have students who don't enroll because maybe they are not legal citizens, or maybe they have to work and support their families, so they just don't feel like they have the time that they can commit to it. And then another obstacle that I wanted to add is that most of the instructors that they hire to teach CTE classes are hired from industry rather than teachers that are trained in education. And so they have little preparation or understanding of how to work with English learners. And some solutions that were offered in some of these documents were that we provide specific PD for those people. We offer some co-teaching, or that we include ELD teachers in the selection and placement of students into those programs, because we have a better understanding of the students and what their abilities are. Some other ways that we can help is disaggregating CTE participation and completion data. And this is actually a requirement of the new Perkins 5 legislation. Creating policies that prohibit schools from denying participation in CTE based on English language proficiency, which I have seen in some of our schools. Ensuring availability of school counselors and CTE to non-fluent students and their families so that they understand what programs are available. Developing policies or programs such as night courses or work-based learning credit programs that encourage working students to remain in school, and creating opportunities for English learners and CTE educators, administrators, and counselors to get together and share their knowledge and resources to create these programs for the students. This next part is about the Perkins 5. So career and technical education policies and programs have been increasingly focused on closing the gap. And the latest Perkins legislation says that it defines 9 learner groups as special populations and includes a lot of provisions that address expanding access to CTE. And this article below is specific to English learners and describes the strategies for supporting them in our schools. So these are some highlights from this article. There are 3 required set-asides for the Perkins allotment. 10% can go to state leadership activities that support closing that gap. And there's some funding that can affect the way that all learners are involved with the program. So local funding can be spent on training teachers, faculty, school leaders, administrators, and special instructional personnel, career guidance and academic counselors, and paraprofessionals to work with English language learners. So some of the Perkins money can be used for that purpose. It also has new government accountability office study that says they have to break down the demographics of who is involved in the CTE programs. They have to show that the subpopulations are able to pursue and complete CTE programs, and that they are not underrepresented in these occupation avenues. So it also states that recruiting and supporting special populations in CTE programs is one of the express purposes of the new Perkins 5 legislation. And it provides significant resources for state and local leaders to support these activities. So there is funding within the new Perkins 5 legislation that is specific to students like English language learners and getting them involved in these programs. And they have provided significant resources, it says. So these are some potential approaches that are included in the 7 state and local strategies: some cross-agency coordination, some professional development, translations, federal policy braiding, scheduling and co-teaching, coordination of supports across the special populations, and counseling for learners and families. So I've broken those down a little bit. On the state and local levels, leaders can collaborate with agencies, community organizations, the Chamber of Commerce, and find out what is it that our non-English speaking and multilingual communities need to understand about this learner group. What are the needs of our community? So that's the first thing that we want to look at. And then, as I said earlier, providing that professional development to provide instructors with techniques for working with English learners, like reading aloud, visual clues, longer wait time, and then UDI. Professional development can also address the cultural competency and creating that inclusive environment and kind of eliminating some of the biases that we have with our English learners. And then also translation. CTE agency and local CTE providers can have print and virtual resources professionally translated into languages that are commonly used by their English learners in their community. They can also, educators can use translation apps, so they can buy tools for translation that can help with their families. They can have newcomer websites or guides or portals designed for their families to help them navigate the educational system. So CTE can have those things built into their program. With federal policy braiding, they can use Perkins and braid it into the English Learner and Immigrant Students Act, the Title III, and also in the Adult Education and Family Literacy Act. So all of those can be meshed together to help get our students into the CTE programs. With scheduling and co-teaching, state policy and local scheduling decisions can help ensure that ELs have access to the CTE program while also completing their English language development classes. There are ways that we can give credits for some of the CTE courses that can offset requirements for graduation. And I'm not familiar with this iBest, but this is a system that many districts and states use to pair English instruction with CTE instruction. Right. And then coordinating of supports across special populations. We know that many of our English learners also are from low income, and we also have about 14% that are learners with English learners with disabilities. So we can connect with those areas as well and consolidate some of that funding and those resources to help with CTE as well. And then counseling for learners and families, making sure that families are aware of the opportunities like dual enrollment, career and technical student organizations, work-based learning, and from knowing their options, they can make better decisions as far as their education and careers for the future, and hopefully get some of them more involved and enrolled in those courses. Then we also have our regional career advisors, and I don't know if we spoke about this a little bit when we talked about enrolling and graduating our English learners, but Missouri Connections is in Spanish and English, and our regional career advisors can help to get students into CTE programs and help develop a program of instruction for them that gets them on the right pathway. So they're aware of this need as well. And again, it's part of the Perkins 5, so they are going to start working to make sure that some of our non-traditional students are involved in these programs. All right, I also have some additional resources for you that I've provided here. From OELA, these first two things are infographics that they have provided that address CTE for our English learners. Preparing English learners for work and career paths. This one, I don't remember who it was from, Links. So Links is another organization that provides several different courses and pathways for our students. This next one is also from Links, Preparing English Learners for Work and Career Pathways. And then there's a list of the courses available. And then CTE of New York, they have an extensive website that gives ideas for professional development and links to different resources that are available to get our ELs involved in CTE. Language Learning and Family and Consumer Sciences. This one was from Open Prairie. It just gives some ideas on other ways to get them involved. This is that link that I talked about earlier, the unlinking opportunities to make it accessible for our English learners. Making good on the promise is also from U.S. Department of Ed. It is careertech.org in collaboration with them. Supporting integrated English learners student instruction. This is for elementary and middle school, a practice guide to get started early on with career ed. From Houston, Texas, there is a tip sheet for supporting English learners in CTE. Then there are from Coloring Colorado, 20 strategies for school leaders to get families engaged with ELs and on that pathway to understanding. This one was, I think, from Larry Ferlasso, no, Edwig, an opinion guide on how to create college and career pathways for English learners. ICEV is another website that is used for supporting English learners. A lot of school districts use it in their CTE program, but they have some strategies specific to English learners. And they said some things that schools districts do not know that are available that are geared specific to English learners as far as translations and extra tools that will support English learners in understanding the coursework. And I believe I'm about to the end. That is. Also, our MEL specialists can help with any of this and talk through some of our CTE programs. Julie Antill especially has had a lot of experience working with CTE in the past and would be a great person to touch base with if you had questions on CTE. And that is it for today. A quick run through of CTE and English language learners. And so the rest of the time, if you have any questions, I'm happy to stay on and entertain those.
Hey, Cami.
Yes.
The link that is in your presentation for the Raise the Bar,
Yes.
it's not you. Oh, well, it's not working on their website either.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't know if you had a way to contact them. Like,
I will let them know that it's not working. Thank you. I'll make a note of that. Thank you.
And the other question I had is, who are the people that work on MSIP?
That would be our Office of Quality Schools. So I don't know if you're familiar with Jocelyn Strand. She's one of the key persons that works on MSIP. You have an MSIP specific question?
I was just looking over. It looks like it was recently updated. Is that right?
Yes, they just had a town meeting last week to discuss the new MSIP.
I mean, my main concern is that there seems to not ever be guidance in MSIP about caseloads for English language development.